Hello students, welcome to our YouTube class. In this video, I'm going to teach you the first chapter of Civics, that is power sharing. What is power sharing? Power sharing is a political system whereby power is distributed or divided among all the communities in the country, from the top level to the grassroots level. Now, what are the effects of power sharing? And if a country does not adopt power sharing, then what happens, what it leads to for not adopting power sharing, and what happens when a country adopts or maintains power sharing. Two illustrations have been given in your book. One is a case from the country Belgium and another is from Sri Lanka. Belgium is a country in Europe. It is a very small country. In size, it is even smaller than a mini state in India, Haryana. And the population of Belgium is only 1 crore, which is also half the population of the small state Haryana in India. Now in Belgium, there are Dutch-speaking people, French-speaking people, and the German-speaking people. 59% of the people in Belgium live in the Flemish region. 59% people live in Flemish region, and they speak Dutch. 40% people live in Wallonia, and they are French-speaking people, and 1% people are German speakers. So 49% people who live in the Flemish region, they are Dutch, and 40% people who live in Wallonia, they speak French, and 1% speak German language. But in the capital city of Belgium, that is Brussels, the capital city of Belgium is Brussels. In Brussels, 80% people are French, 80% people speak French, and 20% people speak Dutch. So in the entire country, the Dutch is the majority. In the entire country of Belgium, the Dutch constitute the majority. 49% of people in Belgium speak Dutch language in the entire country. But if you look at the capital city of Belgium, that is Brussels, 80% people speak French and 20% people speak Dutch. So, this is the case in Belgium, that in the entire country, the Dutch is the majority, but in the capital city, the Dutch is the minority. Now, French-speaking people who constitute about 40% in Belgium, they are relatively richer and more powerful than the Dutch-speaking people. So Dutch, who are actually the majority in the country, they are less powerful or less richer than the French-speaking people. So this caused resentment, this caused anger among the Dutch-speaking people. So this is the case in Belgium. Another case has been given from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is also a very small country located to the south of India. It is one of the countries in South Asia. and it is also one of the neighboring countries of India. Now, Sri Lanka has a diverse population. 74% 74% of the people in Sri Lanka, 74% of the people in Sri Lanka are Sinhala speakers. They speak Sinhala language, and 18% people speak Tamil language. So in Sri Lanka, 74% people speak Sinhala language and 18% people speak Tamil language. Now, among the Tamils, there are two subgroups that are Sri Lankan Tamil, that means they are native to Sri Lanka, and Indian Tamil. And Indian Tamils. Indian Tamils, they are the people who from India went into Sri Lanka as plantation workers. So this is the case in Sri Lanka, and most of the Sinhala speakers are Buddhist. Most of the Sinhala speakers are Buddhist, and among the Tamils are both Hindus and Muslims. Tamils are both Hindus and Muslims. There are Hindus among the Tamils, there are Muslims as well among the Tamils, but the Sinhalas are majorly Buddhist, and there are about 7% Christian population. There are about 7% Christian population in Sri Lanka, and the Sri Lankan Tamils constitute about 13%, and among all the Tamils, the Sri Lankan Tamils constitute about 13%, and the rest are Indian Tamils who came into or arrived in Sri Lanka from India as plantation workers. So this is the case in Sri Lanka. Now we have to see what the governments in both the countries adopted, what policies in both the countries adopted to cater to the wishes and demands of all these communities of people. In both these two countries, Belgium and Sri Lanka, we have noticed that there are diverse communities. In Belgium, there are German speakers, there are French speakers, and there are Dutch speakers. In Sri Lanka, there are Sinhala speakers, there are Tamil speakers, and among the religions, there are Hindus, there are Muslims, there are Buddhists, and some population also belong to Christianity, but Buddhists in Sri Lanka is the majority. The Buddhists in Sri Lanka are the majority, and Sinhala speakers, they are the majority speakers in Sri Lanka. Now let's see what the Sri Lankan government, what policy did the Sri Lankan government adopt to cater to the needs, wishes and aspirations of these diverse communities in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka became independent in the year 1948, and it was the Sinhala community who came to power. Sri Lanka became independent in the year 1948, and the Sinhala community came to power, and the Sinhala community, they are the majority in the country. But the government did not adopt power sharing policy. The policy that they adopted is known as Majoritarianism. The majoritarianism is a policy whereby the majority feel that they have the will, they are able to rule the country whichever way it wants, disregarding the needs or wishes of the minority people. So the Sinhala community that came into power, the power was held by the Sinhala community in Sri Lanka. So after they came into power, they started to adopt majoritarian policy. That means they tried to impose dominance over the minority people. In 1956, an act was passed. In 1956, an act was passed in Sri Lanka, and according to this act, Sinhala was declared to be the official language. Sinhala was declared to be the official language according to 1956 Act. And the government introduced several policies, several laws, that preferred the majority people, the majority communities in Sri Lanka. That means the Sinhala people, the people who belong to the Sinhala community, they will be getting preferences in government jobs or higher studies. So day by day, the Tamil people, they started to feel alienated. That means they started to feel separated in the country. They realized that they are not getting their political rights. Equality was not being maintained in Sri Lanka. The majority Sinhala community was getting all the rights. They were getting all the preferences. So these led to conflicts and tensions between the Sinhala people and the Tamil people. The Tamil people, they realized that there was no party, no political party in Sri Lanka that fought for their rights, that fought for their equality. So afterwards, when they started to feel alienated day by day, it led to massive violence, and ultimately it led to civil war in Sri Lanka in 1980s. So the civil war, it destroyed all the development, all the economic development that Sri Lanka had made. Sri Lanka progressed quite nicely, but all the progress that they had made was virtually destroyed due to the civil war that occurred because of their adoption of majoritarian policy. Whereas the Belgium, they adopted a power sharing model. Now we shall take a look at the models that the Belgian government had adopted. Now in Belgium, the Dutch constituted the majority in the entire country, but in the capital city of Brussels, the French was the majority and the Dutch was the minority. The French constituted 80% in the capital city of Brussels, and the Dutch only constituted 20%. In Belgium, the central government was formed with equal representation. The central government was formed with equal representation from the Dutch and the French speaking people. So there were equal representations from the Dutch people and the French speaking people, number one. Number two, in the capital city of Brussels, there was a separate government where there was also an equal representation from the French speaking people and the Dutch speaking people. The power of the central government was given to the state government. State government was formed, and the state government was not subordinate to the central government. That means the state government had autonomous power. The state government can have its own power. It is not that it only has to abide by the orders of the central government. So the state government that was made, it was not subordinate to the central government. It had autonomous power. And another government was formed, that was community government in Belgium. So community government means each community, that means there were basically three communities: French, the Dutch, and the Germans. So each community had the right to form their own government that would look after the issues related to language or cultures. So in this way, in Belgium, power was shared among all the communities of the people, and hence they could stop conflicts that was growing up between the French speakers and the Dutch speakers. So the conflict that was growing up could have been avoided due to the adoption of power sharing policy in Belgium. Now all the communities had equal representation, had equal power. Whereas in Sri Lanka, the government, after coming into power, they adopted majoritarian policy, which alienated the Tamil people. They demanded Tamil language to be declared as the official language as well, but all of their demands were not met, and all the preferences were being had by the Sinhala speakers. So day by day, as the Tamil speakers were feeling alienated, they started struggles, they started protests and demonstrations, and ultimately it led to massive conflicts, massive violence, and ultimately it led to civil war, which caused heavily to the Sri Lankan economy. All the progress that they had made in all these years was destroyed. So these are the effects of power sharing. If power sharing is maintained, then the unity of the country could be maintained. Now there is a question, and it may come in your exam: why is power sharing desirable? That means, why do we need power sharing? Now we have seen from these two examples of Belgium and Sri Lanka that power sharing maintains unity in the country. So the number one requirement of power sharing is it maintains unity in the country. It avoids social conflicts or violence. Now whenever violence or social conflicts happens in the country, it destabilizes the government. The government becomes unstable. So it avoids social conflicts, it avoids violence, it maintains unity in the country. And number two, power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. Now democracy is based on the principle of equality, and it is power sharing that ensures equality, that gives power to all the communities of people. No community feels alienated in the country when power sharing is adopted. So it is the very principle of democracy. So these are the two reasons why power sharing is required. Number one, power sharing maintains unity in the country. Power sharing avoids social conflicts and violence. Number two, power sharing is the very spirit of democracy. For the functioning of democracy, power sharing is absolutely necessary. Now, let's see what are the forms or arrangements of power sharing. How is it actually done? First of all, power sharing is followed in the organs of the government. That means, number one, the government may have three organs, that is legislature, Number 2, executive. And number 3, judiciary. These are the 3 organs of the government. The function of legislature is to frame laws. The function of executive is to implement or execute these laws. And the function of judiciary is to oversee whether these laws are being maintained or not. So judiciary has to be kept separate from the legislature and the executive department. So power sharing means distribution of power between the organs of the government. So it is not that when there was monarchy. So in case of monarchy, power is held by a single ruler. The king frames the laws. Whatever the king says, it is the laws. And the final judgment is also given by the king. But it is not so in true democracy. It is not so where power sharing is followed. So all the organs of the government have equal power. The organs of the government are separated and they have their respective power, respective functions. Number 2, power sharing can be done in different levels of the government, such as in India we have central government. Between the different levels of government, so these are the organs of the government, number 1 point. And number 2, power can be shared between the different levels of government. For example, in India, we have a central government or the union government. And in each state, we have a state government. In India, the states are basically linguistic states. And each state has its own state government. And the state government is not subordinate to the central government. And we have local self-government as well, which is divided into municipalities and panchayats and municipal corporations as well. So these are the different levels of government among which power can also be shared. Next, power can be shared among different social groups or political parties. So, in democracy, the voters must have greater choices to elect their representatives. A true democracy must give equal opportunity to the opposition parties as well. So the voters will have greater choices to vote for. So there should be many more political parties, there should be many more social groups who can stage protest if they think that the governmental policy are going against their interests. So greater number of political parties, greater number of social groups should require in the country for power sharing. So power can be shared among different political parties as well. Now, in election, the political party that gets the majority seats, that gets the majority votes, form the government. But whenever one single party does not get the majority, then the like-minded parties, they form together to make the government, which is called coalition government. So that is also another aspect of power sharing. So in this way, power can be shared among different organs of the government. Power can be shared among different levels of the government, such as the central government, state government, or local self-government. And power can be shared among different social groups, different political parties, and even community government as well. So hope you have realized this chapter quite well, and I don't think you will have any difficulty in writing answers in your exam. Even if you still have any problem from this chapter, feel free to ask me by writing on the comment box, and I shall be very happy to respond to you. Thank you for watching.